Yeah, card number 402. But before this, you took a card actually. Take that card. Because the thing was written there, but on the other side, there is something very printed. Is it visible?
Yeah.
The logo. Yeah, this is Genius Temple of Creative Management, Anandare Coimbatore. I had a email Genius himself at gmail.com. We had a website geniustemple.com. I don't remember when was it. Okay, sometime in the last 12, 13 years back, that's all. This was my great dream. Yeah, after two doctoral works and decades of dedicated research in creativity and originality and all that, I was strongly convinced that my mission in life is to train uh, potential candidates in creativity and analytical thinking, then the genius state of mind and spirit, and so on and so forth. So I conceptualized what we call a genius temple of creative management. I had a brochure, and we did at least 2-3 exhibitions in so-called educational exhibitions in Coimbatore and Kerala. Only 3 or 4 people came, and they were not really good enough. They thought whatever is trained here will fetch them a job directly. And I realized that it won't work. So this Genius Temple of Creative Management concept was shelved, and then I, I decided upon what you call Genius Choice Institute. Where only once in a while some of my earlier trainees, 1 or 2 of them would be inspired to continue their evolution and development of what I called Genius in Self, Genius Choice Institute. And we got it registered and we published a magazine called Genius Choice. I hope one day we will show it in the video. About 2 issues of the Genius Choice magazine was published, and it also could not be continued. I did all these things fully realizing also that the so-called genius is less than 0.03% of the population. Okay, I never wanted it to be very well known with a lot of students and all that, but I thought at least 1 or 2 would come, but nobody came. So Genius Choice Institute, I did a Genius in Self program. About 8 participants were there that we did online by Google Meet or Zoom, and we did it for about 2 years. Some top guys, of course, participated in that. Now, on the other hand, we have a Rasayanic temple where we make rasayanas that will make people healthy, completely develop immunity and develop the body, mind and spirit, where the Jiva Yoga is done. So Rasayanic temple and Jiva Yoga, that's our current situation. And even these cards are now being briefly explained on behalf of Jiva Yoga. Okay. So that is that card. I'm just keeping it in a symbol of creative management. It had a logo. What was the logo? Yeah. Logo or something again very ultimate. Under it was written Swabhava Nirmoksha. Swabhava Nirmoksha, that's a Sanskrit word. So Swabhava Nirmoksha is the meaning of the word Sarga or Nisarga. The Sanskrit word for genius is Sarga. Also, sometimes the Ni also added, Nisarga or Sarga. So both means Swabhava Nirmoksha. So what is genius? Genius is Swabhava Nirmoksha. Nirmoksha meaning to give release, to give moksha, to set free. What? The bhava, or the expressions and responses and behaviors of the swa meaning the original self. So that is genius.
No.
Yeah. I used to tell the teachers and some parents and some interest groups that children should be trained to understand the concept of creativity in its Sanskrit equivalent called Nisarga, which actually means Swabhava Nirmoksha. Children should be trained to identify their specialities or their uniqueness and should be inspired and trained to develop that. Ultimately, aiming at self-discovery. Swabhava Nirmoksha and the moksha of the Swa also. Okay, that's the story of my journey. That's all. Alright. So the second card you picked up is number 402, right?
Yes.
Yeah. 402 in it is written latest physics terms. Oh, I see. So I have discovered some correlation between creativity and particle physics. So I have just like that written some of the concepts of particle physics and I think deeper psychology. First time I have written is causal, acausal connection or orderedness, O-R-D-E-R-E-D, orderedness. Causal, C-A-U-S-L, hyphen acausal, A-C-A-U-S-A-L. That means connection. That means there can be connection by a cause or without any cause also.
Oh,
It's beautiful in particle physics only.
okay.
So connection between two things can happen by a cause, by certain uh, other factors, or it can happen just like that, without any cause. And or orderedness. I don't remember what these concepts in particle physics are. Okay. Then the next concept I have written is AION. It is actually that is a concept by Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest founders and psychologists. He has the concept of AION. That also I don't remember. So, so ion by Carl Jung and particle physics and psychology, it talks about self-regulating dynamic system. Self-regulating dynamic system. So our body functions are sort of self-regulating dynamic system. The heart is pumping the blood and the lungs are taking the air and other five values of the body are distributed, functioning to conduct, to regulate the body process of digestion, neuronal systems, etc., etc. So organisms are self-regulating dynamic system. Okay. So our brain also is a self-regulating dynamic system. Maybe our flow of consciousness is part of the self-regulating dynamic system only. If the stream of consciousness is not operating all the time, or if every time you have to choose an item to think consciously, then there may not be any thoughts at all. Okay. So the self-regulating dynamic system is a causal relationship system, whereas a dream could be acausal. We cannot identify any particular causal factor, causal structure for a particular dream. That's why dreams are so eccentrically distributed. When a given dream has contents which are absolutely eccentric, there is no causal connection between items in the dream. Sometimes you see causal connection also. So dream is an example of causal, acausal, yet self-regulated dynamic system. See? These are all for our understanding only. Now, the concept I have written here is Freudian libido. Freudian libido. Libido is a concept created by Freud, which actually means sexual energy or energy. So, Sigmund Freud conceptualized that the basic, there must be a basic energy system which is like a battery operating in the entire, that drives the entire body process systems. And the nature of that energy is sexual in character. You use the word sex, but great majority of population as well as even the very psychologists mistook the word sex because they are all obsessed about sex. Therefore, they could not think of sex as a causal. Sex was something neutral. Freud meant only a neutral word because it was the direction of the gender or the basic nature of it is sexual in character. So by sexual character meaning that attraction towards the opposite sex or the inspiration to continue relationship with the opposite sex and find meaning in activities. Okay? Look at the meaning of activities like parents take care of the children. Why do they take care of the children? Because they know that they were born out of them. How they could be born out of them? By basically that sexual attraction. The man-woman relationship is whatever be the nature of friendship or worship or discipleship, there is an element of sexuality there. Okay? Alright? So that's why most of the modern gurus are most of the time accused of having some special relationship with the female disciples. And female gurus are obviously attracted more towards the male disciples than the female disciples. We can see the rudimentary projections of that concern, an extra concern for a disciple of the opposite sex. Nothing wrong about that. That is the program. That is the libidinal energy working. So, uh, so Freudian libido, I compare it with the Newtonian mechanical worldview. That means Isaac Newton's mechanical worldview. That has influenced a little bit of Freud also. Because he could think of libidinal energy as the causal factor, as the gravitational force of every falling stone of expressions and responses and behaviors and actions and relationships and languages between the sexes. You know? You follow?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Then the Jungian psychological energy. Jung also talks about psychological energy. But Jung was not that willing to use the word sex, you know.
Okay.
So he used the concept of psychological energy instead of libidinal energy. Then I have written alpha particles and components, how the molecules or atoms are structured. Alpha particles and components, that is 2 protons and 2 neutrons. 2 neutrons. 2 protons and 2 neutrons form the radioactive damaging energy. This I have actually, after reading it, I have just jotted down. I don't understand it fully actually, the way a particle physicist would understand. But at the time of reading it, I could see particle physics principles are kind of, comparable with the principles of the libidinal energy and the way the mind and the brain works. Then the great principle of Werner Heisenberg, uncertainty principle. Okay, that I have compared with the what you call the spinning of electrons. So you can see particle physics operating in the human entity dynamics. Also, that is in this card. Just a general knowledge card. Okay. But one can reflect upon this. That's why most of the time great physicists become enlightened. No other subject. Masters in chemistry or engineering or economics or literature, even literature and philosophy may not get that level of self-discovery. But a particle physicist can. Like most of the works of Richard Feynman, all right? Then Werner Heisenberg, then Fritjof Capra. Fritjof Capra, in his book The Tower of Physics, openly declares the parallel between his understanding of particle physics and that the universe is nothing but a sea of particles. Rather, the particles of air and the particles of iron and the particles of bone and particles of wood or leaf, all these are identical in nature at the subatomic particle level. So when Fritjof Capra developed that understanding, At that moment of what you call Satori, one day he was lying down on the shore of a certain ocean, and he has written in the very front page of his book, Tao of Physics, that the entire world appeared to be a dance of Shiva. This way he has written. So particle physics is great because human beings are nothing but an integral part of the universe, and human beings are also made of sort of particles or cellular assemblages, and they operate more or less similarly the way the world operates. I mean the universe operates. So human beings are just a derivation of the universal process, and when the universal process can be explained by particle physics can explain the human mind and spirit also. That's how particle physics become enlightened or become close to enlightened condition or mental states. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, that's all. Take the next card, the third card. Yeah. Yeah, card number 152. That is program flow.
Okay.
I think this way I have written about the way normally I conduct a training program, I suppose. Huh? It is PRG FLOW meaning program flow. One, attention is the central operating principle in a program also. So the guiding action of my training program is based on the understanding that attention is the uh, uh, core of the human entity, and attention is mostly possible on what you know. Yeah? You cannot focus your attention on something which you do not know. So, in a training program, you have to begin by directing their attention on what they know as the gate and gradually take them to the next levels, so from the known to the unknown. Because nobody can focus attention on the unknown. So, bring them to the known, get their attention, and then direct it to the higher dimensions of whatever you propose to make them understand. Point number two. When your attention on you, you get aware of the given you. Oh, that is the second point. Yeah, if your attention is normally flowing towards the known,
Okay.
and when that attention on you become aware of the operating current you, yeah, the present you. Right now you are holding the camera. Right now I am talking, looking at the card. The attention should be is actually on the external variables. For a moment, they have to just put a sudden break and reverse that attention to the doer of this doing. Okay,
Okay.
that is the moment called satori. And the point number three is our program is based on a plus 3 sigma dimension of the human entity. That's again, as I began, Genius Temple of Creative Management or Genius Studies Institute is focused on the plus 3 sigma level of human entity. It's about bringing the attention of the candidate to the plus 3 sigma possibility of that person. So it is very, very, very complicated and very difficult. In simple language, it is very tough. That's why even when we have trained about roughly 20 people, maybe around 3 or 4 or 5 are at least near the plus 3 sigma. Others are just between plus 2.5 to 3 sigma only. Because they are all employed people, they are all educated people. Educated itself meaning the thought systems and the perception system and the attention system are trained to focus only on the known. You know, a little baby's attention is going everywhere equally. On the flower, on a piece of wood, on the cat, on the dog, on the trees, on the sky and all that. Okay? Gradually they are all kind of swept out and made narrow to basic items in the home environment, basic concepts or ideas or basic simple languages uttered by the parents. Okay? So over a period of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, a child's attention is completely subdued uh, uh, and trained to follow only that which is known. They say a little baby is ready to go to anybody coming home, but gradually it is trained not to do that. Go only to the familiar people. So they become journalists, don't go only to the familiar things, familiar events, familiar contexts and familiar environment and familiar knowings. So that can be familiarized. Okay.
Okay.
So they are the three cards of today. Bye.